but still like SQL, it's the most efficient, let's say, language to work with analyzing. Because actually it's just, you can read the data, you can write, organize, and also analyze within a relation database. It's a really fundamental skill for an experienced data analysis. We can also, of course, use Python, as you can see with Redshift, for instance, for Amazon, but still like SQL with all many differences like MySQL, Postgre, and all of the differences of SQL. It's actually the heart, let's say, the programming language that we need. And then, to me, one of the most important steps is actually the data cleaning, because how matter actually we go start analyzing your data, different patterns. Yes.
Stop the audio on your voice because
okay.
Okay. So we need to stop the mic and.
Is it like this?
Just a mic.
Right? Okay. Perfect. So as I said, so the cleaning data is much better. The cleaning data is, to me, it's one of the most important steps, because first of all, whenever I have a new client or a new job, going into database and start just digging into the database and start connecting tables, understanding what's happening exactly, but doing basic steps actually could be either just statistical numbers, like how many clients we have, how many money we do each month, etc. So this practice actually, it helps, first of all, understand the business, understand how table structure, architecture of the table are doing. But most importantly, you can definitely find errors, missing data in the tables, and consistency. So all of this problem you can see it, and it leads actually to a cleaning of the data. The cleaning of the data, it's not a data analyst that will do it, but he will find it, he will connect it to the tech teams. Usually it's data engineer, or if you have the whole team of structural data teams, so usually it's data engineer that for BI, like business intelligence teams, that will analyze the problem and then try to clean it, correct it, and then with the right information. It helps also, as I said, to communicate inconsistencies to the business, because sometimes they only know why would you have this kind of errors, let's say, of problems we have in the data. So data cleaning, it's also try to gathering data from different sources, because usually we don't have all the database in one place, so we will have it in different data warehouse maybe, or just in another host. So having the skills to can gather and mix information, mix the data, is also one of the most important skills. As I said, Python and R is a statistical programming language. It's also used in data analysis, but to be honest, it's much more used in data science than analysis. The SQL would be like the 99% of the language we use as a technical language. And then for statistical language, we will use a little bit further, like more focused statistical languages, as well as Microsoft Excel, which is also important in some specific, let's say, use case. Not use it all the time, but some use case we really have some sets of database that we can check in the big database. You can check it like you alone with your just human eye. So we need actually Microsoft Excel, but with the further also function like VLOOKUP or the markers. And then data visualization is actually the last step we have after analyzing, after finding the patterns, connecting the dots, and then solving the problem. Let's say we usually do not present this information to the stakeholders just by giving them the numbers or like an Excel sheet. We definitely, the more and more today, we definitely build and design dashboard. So data visualization, it's basically designing dashboard with the same query that we did to analyze the problem and find the solution. We just copy actually the big query, put it in the tools like Tableau or like Insights from Amazon. There's a lot of examples of data visualization. And then, as I said, like we took this information and tried to build a dashboard that would be actually automation, because this is much important for the stakeholders. They want to know that every day, every morning, actually they open their dashboard and they will see the new everyday numbers changing and then see the trend and see and actually follow the problem that we solve, because again, it's always a trend by month, by year, etc. We don't just have independent problems, it's always linked to other problems. So the skills of actually connecting the dots, it's also very important. And this is where we go to the soft skills. Communication, definitely, because as I said again before, it's a job between technical part and business part. So communication, actually, technical part as correcting and then cleaning the database, or like needing sometimes information and data we don't have, we don't use. So we have to communicate that to the data engineers. They actually brought the data and they put it in the right database for us. And then communicating to the business. This is the real routine you have with the stakeholders, always like communication between them. Either they have problem, they come to us, explain it, and then we have to find the problem. Sometimes they just have anomalies, but nobody knows why. So we need all this communication between them, so we can, from our side, we do know how database and how the numbers are, and from their side, of course, they understand way better the business. So we actually have this complementary skills between us. Solving problem and critical thinking is very important, but to be honest, it's not something you can, first day you start the job, you say, I know how to solve problems. It's really something that comes with experience, so it's okay if you don't have it the first day. It's the more you treat data, the more you treat problem, the better you will see patterns quickly and then you solve problem quickly too. Collaboration, it's also goes with the communication, because you never work alone, like almost never. Of course, when you're like coding and designing, you're alone, but usually you're always part of the team, or at least with the communication and collaboration with business. And criticism skills too, because again, we never just stop by solving the problem, giving numbers, and that's it. We usually put a dashboard or presentation and we have to present it to the stakeholders. It could go, I mean, usually it could go until the CEO, because all those people are obsessed with the data analysis and they really want to know everything, and you have to present everything. So let's go to the part 2 where, what does a data analyst exactly do? So of course, it's not just a whole lot more than how to crunch number. This second part, again, it's really important, as I explained before, dig into a database, because this is actually how you understand the business. Because technically, you can, you have the ability and you can start doing queries. You have SQL, you have Python, so definitely it's easy for you as a technical person to go to the data warehouse and start coding. But do you understand exactly what you are given to the number, how accurate actually this number, and how relevant the number are? This is the most important. So digging into database, to me, it takes really much time, and you have to be very patient to pass hours and hours into databases. And again, communication, it's part of the job. It's daily routine with the stakeholders, and so. Also, again, this image is really not random, because this is maybe 80% of the job. We're always connecting tables. We're always trying to find dots and trying to find link between tables, because database will come with name of tables with the columns, but which one is relevant to the other one? And it just the practice and the understanding of the business that will give you how to connect the tables, how to give the right answer to the right question, of course, and also, connecting dots. It's one of the crucial aspects. Once you finish all this time of working as yourself, like trying to understand and connecting and queries, now you can actually, when you find the big picture, once connecting the dots, at some point the big picture comes and the answer comes. So the answer, to me, I like to call it writing the story and drawing the big picture. Because you can't bring this image to a stakeholder or give them a code and tell them this is how it works. You definitely have to tell them a story. So you brought me this problem, and then we did, etc. So it's kind of a skill, I would say, and then again, it comes with the experience. But they always need to hear it, because it's a technical job to a non-technical people. This is, to me, when it gets a little bit tricky, because how to give them the right picture of what happening. And the problem sometimes is also how to tell them, no, technically we can't do that. I understand that the business understands it like this, but technically the database doesn't connect this kind of information. So yeah, writing this story and then drawing the big picture is also part of the job of the analyst. And then, yeah, designing the dashboard, it's not easy actually. It's never clear. It's a really powerful software, I would say, like Tableau or Precise or Metabase and Power BI. I think just like for the most known visualization tools. It's really it's a lot of practice, of course, but also a lot of documentation because it's one page, but it has much more powerful things to do. Let's say you can connect it to database, it can be connected to warehouses, also being automated all the time. So it's very important and it's very, very useful. So let's see a little bit, just a big picture again about of course, I'm going to focus on the tools that Amazon Web Services have. So usually this is like a big picture of, I think there's much more. This is like very short picture of the architecture of the data Amazon. So basically, data analysts will work this part. Data Amazon Redshift, it's a data warehouse. So the data analysts always need a data warehouse to work because it's an environment actually where we can write these query codes and then we can connect those and all this job we're doing. And we can't do it here or like in Amazon S3. Technically we can write code and then because it's a database, but it's just a host. It's not adapted to do analytics. So that's why later actually all this data warehouses are created. They are actually created for the data analytics job. And then always, at least the most known data warehouses are connected to either a data visualization or they can also export numbers and tables to Excel sheet. So the tools, as I said, usually the work of data analysts will actually always be those. 80% of the data warehouses are like 20% of data visualization. But just some examples, let's say Amazon Redshift, we have also Snowflake and visualization, we have Tableau and Power BI. But Amazon also have a quick site that actually can give you, because it's already in the web service, so you can just take your query and take your actually, just query and put it to have a quick site that has a name. Well, I just want to say about the data lake, because a lot of people ask me what the difference is between data lake and data warehouse. Basically, data lake it's like a lake actually of data. So the raw data just come, and then the data lake always throw the data into warehouses. Warehouses will be more structured data, and of course, organized on tables by column, by line, etc. So data lake is like a raw volume of data, and then warehouses is where we can actually interact with data. So again, this is just like a big picture of how we collect, store, and analyze. All of these kind of tools are really important and linked to between them. We have always this glue here and this migration from the collecting, storing, and analyzing. A lot of people are working here data because it's a lot of job still, and I'm raising awareness about analytics, but I would say data engineers not known enough. Scientists a little bit more, but we have a lot of whole, let's say, business intelligence teams, we call them, that actually they are developers for data that are like working on all this collecting, storing, and analyzing. And definitely, we don't have any structured data and no analytics. So thank you. We have an engineer here. Same actually, just more a pipeline actually of the storage, structure, and transform the loaded data. And then this is the tool of Amazon actually that can make actually the analysis work. We have the whole Athena and the Redshift, which are as I said, data warehouses, and also this is the database actually where you can just let's say, organize more the data and then as a report we have the sites. This is a more picture of the actual Amazon Redshift. So on the left, you always have the database, also the name of the tables. Each table you click on it, it just appears here, so you have the whole visual of the columns. And then here, it's just environment, so you can write a code. As I said, usually it's SQL. Maybe sometimes you can integrate Python, but usually actually data warehouses only work with SQL. So you run your query here, you have the results here, and so on. I think it's the same base that any code environment. And this is also an example of data visualization. So this is a board. It's coming from the Amazon QuickSight dashboard. It could be simple, it could be like something in the middle like this, but it could be really way much more complicated than that. It just depends on the business again, depend on who are actually the people that will be giving them to the information. Some people in the stakeholder and business are really actually connecting with the data analytics and what we do, and they really understand easily. So you can just give them very complex information and they like it like this, and then everything inside. But actually it depends on your audience. If the audience are really new with all this communication with the analytics, so you keep it simple, you give them maybe, you split all this information by dashboard, but sometimes it's easier to put everything inside and just keep them. I just really wanted again to make a point about data engineers, because I also discovered that lately we have 80% of data engineers that experience burnout because a lot of work on them. Everybody is talking about analysts and data scientists, which is new jobs and everybody likes them, but nobody knows what is behind. And actually, data engineers do the whole big work as I can say. It's very important to really learn also about this job, because it's not recognized. It's also not well paid as developers, which they're actually mastering much more technologies because they are developers, but they also master all the analytics and the data and the database, etc. So just a quick thank you. And the last part is, what is the difference between analytics and science? In a very simple word, let's say that, first of all, of course, they both use the same data, though that analytics will use structured data, but science will use structured and unstructured data, but still the use is different. For the data analytics, we use the data of today and we understand today what we're doing. And again, as I say, taking decisions for the next step. But a data scientist will use the same data, but to predict actually for the future. So building models with the machine learning, but to predict either behaviors or the trend of the customers, of the users, etc. So also the data scientists, they will actually have their own questions, while the data analysts answer questions from the stakeholders and the businesses. So yeah, let's not go into all details, but in big picture, it's more like data analysts work with the data of today, and scientists will definitely predict for the future. And that's it. Thank you so much for your attention.
We have some questions. Anyone has a question for Marwa? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let me go first. Thank you. I can see you're using Redshift for your database. What is your data inspiration of using SQL as compared to SQL? Like that would be, because I mean, like the data is static, so
yes.
Interesting.
Yes, but definitely data analysts will never use NoSQL, because the base of our job is definitely based on structured data. We can't actually use any unstructured data. So SQL is definitely the only one we can use, as well as Python, as I said. But in the structured language, it's only SQL. We never use actually NoSQL. But actually, data scientists, they use NoSQL for actually predicting.
I have a question.
Yes.
So basically, you found your own company.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you so much.
So, okay. So your clients, for example. So how do you find them, or do they find you?
Good question. But actually, this platform actually today, like, yes, but much more specific. let's say we call it freelance, but it doesn't have to be always freelance. It could also be a structured company. Malt, M-A-L-T. It's kind of new, but actually they are 100% specialized in freelance. So, and also, I mean, this is French. It's kind of like so it's the same thing actually. Clients come to you or actually you have your profile like LinkedIn.
So basically you have a team of data engineers, analysts.
Not the students. I only have data analysts, but I do work all the time with the engineer, let's say, of the clients level. They usually provide, they have already a structure. Not usually they have all of it, like engineer and scientists or whatever. But definitely they have someone that's handling the database, at least someone that is from the business. So yeah, so this is how I do interact with them all the time.
So basically your experience in writing research papers and all that is what helps you in data analysis.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, my question. First of all, thank you for the great presentations.
Thank you so much.
So, can you share with us some tips how you manage the cost in your data analytics platform? Maybe you want to how can you make it a very more cost effective?
Yeah. Okay. So I have one tip that I kind of discovered lately. You know that the query, as I said, we do write queries in two platforms: the data warehouse and also the data visualization. If you keep writing in the data warehouse, each code you write, it costs you money. If actually you took just one small query and then put it in the data visualization tool, and you keep writing because it's connected actually to the database. So actually you can write in the data visualization, connect it to the database in data warehouse, and it costs nothing because this data visualization you pay once per year and everything. So actually you just pay nothing. But actually I went from kind of thousands of dollars until $20 per month, something like this. So it's really not costing nothing again.
Any more questions? Yeah.
So when you deal with customers, I guess you're dealing with big clients, maybe in the healthcare systems or
Could be.
yeah, possibly. How like you need to sign NDAs and you need to deal with a lot of security stuff. How do you make sure that your data scientists are using the data in your warehouse and they are not mixing it up with something else, for example? So like data purity and at the same time keeping things secure and compliant with like GDPR security, like in Europe.
Yes. Well, we do have these GDPR new laws, of course, that make it more, let's say, safer. But to be honest, there is no way you can secure data with the people you are working with, because of course you do give them access only with the computer that you give them and with the VPN, etc. So let's say technically you're safe. But if I want and then like copy the data or like copy the information or copy the insights and then give them to another client, like whatever, anything, it's definitely possible. So data is never that much secure as like practically you can do it.
Sorry, but like in your case, do you need to be, for example, ISO 27001 certified?
Sorry, if I need to?
Do you need to be ISO certified?
No, not necessarily. No, actually, don't use it now.
So how do you handle the security issues?
Actually, as let's say, as a data analyst, it's not your problem. It's really not your job. Definitely, you may experience something, but you just report it actually to the. As I said, there's always a structured team of the data today. All this architecture, I said, each part of it has actually one person working on it. So you just usually, again, I always work with data engineers in any technical problems, let's say, about database.
Whose responsibility usually is to secure your data?
It's data engineers.
Okay.
Yes. Because they are the one responsible to provide the data. So they know where it's coming from, where they put it, and then where it's going. So it's definitely that's their job. Yes.
Do you export the data to your own warehouses, or do you host your warehouses on their infrastructure?
No, actually, it's the warehouse itself. It's like a copy from the host. Like that's why it's it's only for data analytics because actually it's just a way. Actually, it's like a way to give an environment to analysts to work on the data. So technically, like Snowflake, let's say you connect in a few minutes. You just copy from your house from your host the whole database, and then it's come like as a virtual, but actually it's coming every second. So it's like fresh data. Let's say you have this environment where you can like code, do whatever you want. But then it's an intermediate because only data warehouses can be connected to data visualization tools. The host can't be connected. So that's why actually, but this is the part when we pay money. So.
Okay, one last question, guys, please take. I have a question because we have a lot of people actually coming from not tech backgrounds that are attending our meetups.
I try to be
right. So what do you recommend, or like, what's your tips if someone really like what you said and they want to go into that field? How they can start with that?
Well, actually, it's very interesting question because it's definitely a job that even non-tech people can start it at least, because you don't have to go to a whole developer, let's say, world and then all these computer science things. So again, the SQL is really important to master, but then you have to work on your analytical skills. First tips, I would say there is a lot of websites. I can actually share the link later. It's just clients that put their problems with a set of database and then for free, of course, but as you like a beginner, you can train yourself actually with this data, and it's really interesting. I did that like years before, and also it's really helping all the time. It's kind of competition. You may like gain some money or something like that, but it's usually for practice. It's real problems. Small company that put their problems, put their set of database, because they will not give you the whole database, but only the data that you need, and actually you just can start slowly doing it yourself, and it's really easy to start at least.
Awesome. Thank you so much for.
Thank you so much.
While our second speaker was Mark, okay, while he's preparing, we always have 5-10 minutes on who's hiring. So please, if anyone hiring for their team, there you go. Can you shout out what you guys are hiring? How much the salary?
We're hiring a senior full stack engineer. The stack is basically JavaScript, so anything is welcome.
How can they reach you?
LinkedIn, email.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
How they can know your LinkedIn?
My name is Mohammed. If you can write it, that's good. If not,
Okay.
just search for Orgtomic. That's ORGTOMIC. And yeah, Orgtomic. And you'll find me on the CPO.
You guys can write some notes. Okay, thanks, Mohammed. Any other roles, or that's it?
That's the one role, but for salary expectations, just to keep it realistic, it's 8,000 to 10,000.
Okay, and I saw you guys just got the MTech. Now you can get visa, right?
Oh yeah.
I just saw that from.
That was the yeah.
Okay, awesome. Anyone is hiring, guys? Service open. All right. Coolest company.
So, I'm from Service Market. My name is Ahmed here. I'm a senior SIE, I think. So we're hiring from senior software engineers to non-senior to manager, anything. We have a lot of roles. And we're all over the world, so our culture is actually very fun. The job is too relaxing. Look at me, CPA, because it's too relaxing. So it's like from 9 to 6, and like I don't get messages after 6 o'clock. I feel lonely. You know? Sometimes you want a message at 6, 1 minute, right? Then you manage it tomorrow at night. So the work-life balance is very good. I mean, look at me, I'm wearing this good office. So basically, you can wear whatever you want as long as it's moderate. Very nice culture. And you need to pay an appointment in order for you to come to the office, which is, I know, it's weird. Usually the boss is like, come. But the manager's like, you book us. So yeah, we're hiring about the salary range from.
It was a joke, but I like that. You can negotiate better.
So like 4 figures, this is monthly, not yearly. 4 figures yearly is something So for monthly salary from 4 figures to 5 figures. 6 figures, I never heard of it yet. But maybe yes.
Only to tell things.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Vavo. Okay, so we're going to our second speaker, Mark. Thanks, man. Last minute, Coach told him, but he made it. So he will teach us how to build personal website in a serverless.
Yeah,
Way.
something like that. Yeah.
That's
And
it.
it's a very, I would say the title is a misconception of what I'm trying to talk about. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Cool. So, how many of you all have used AWS's serverless application model? I know you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, how many of you have used React? Okay, so I was actually surprised. How many developers in the house? Ah, there we go. Okay. Okay. So with that, I'm not a developer. I'm more on the infrastructure side. I'm used to building, designing enterprise architecture stuff. I'm used to connecting the dots, integration, and all of that. But I never actually developed, right? So something I wanted to do from November was actually to see what it would take for someone like me or someone from non-developer side to actually start developing and move into the development field, basically. Right? I mean, I don't actually want to move into development. I like my job. But yeah, so that's what I did, right? So now I was like, okay, let's look at serverless now. I was talking to my friends, and everyone was like, yeah, WordPress websites are really good, and Wix and Squarespace, and I was like, but like, you're kind of stuck to what they do, right? Like, there are so many constraints, right? So a little bit about me. I'm an SA with a company called AspireNext. AspireNext is an AWS partner. We basically work on digital transformation for enterprises. That's what we do as an organization, and I'm part of our digital team, so I work on modern application development and also on cloud migration and adoption for organizations. Right, so anyone on-prem or cloud, it's not. It's not. I know AWS talks about it. Go create a website, go to the website, and open an account. Hey, you're on AWS, right? But there's a lot of stuff that goes into actually moving enterprises into AWS, and that's what I do. So now, what I want to do was, okay, let's look at how serverless can fit into my life now, right? So, how many of y'all think serverless is the future? All right. Anyone want to tell me why do you think serverless is the future?
It's cheap.
One. Okay.
Fast.
What did Kaushik say?
Not cheap always.
Not cheap always. Correct. Yeah. So I do believe serverless is the future, right? But serverless is not cheap. I'm sorry, but it's not cheap. So, but it depends on where you're applying serverless, right? So in my application, okay, I'm going to contradict myself in the next few statements, but serverless is not cheap when you're running. Oh, I didn't do that. I can argue on that a lot. But yeah, so serverless is not cheap for enterprise applications. Think about that. Right? Because enterprise applications running 24/7, you have multiple users using it parallelly, and with that parallelism, serverless becomes very expensive very fast. Right? So it really depends on these we call these design patterns, right, in enterprise architecture. Right? So serverless is the future. Don't get me wrong, right? I love serverless. It's only when organizations come and tell me, hey, we have 10,000 users, we're using this application running long-running queries, for example. Marvel's analytics, you run a long-running query on Lambda, 15 minutes later, your query fails. So, anyway, that's what I think, right? So there are obviously challenges with serverless, like you said. One, serverless is not good for long-running queries, right? It's not it doesn't get it gets expensive when you don't use it right, when you don't follow architectural design patterns, right? So something my friend here covered a few months back was how about being a solution architect, right? Like is understanding architectural patterns, but also understanding trade-offs. So the trade-off to when to use serverless, right? So now bringing that back into your personal life, building a website for yourself, right? So the whole inspiration for today was how do you get a personal portfolio out into the world? And for example, in this case, it's going to be very cheap, right? I'm still paying zero for this, right? So what I was thinking was, of course, AWS has SAM, the serverless application model, right? If anyone is not familiar with serverless application model, it's a framework from AWS built for developers to leverage, deploy your applications into the serverless, services available on AWS. Does everyone know about the serverless services on AWS? Yeah. Okay. Can anyone name 5 serverless services on AWS? 5. I wouldn't say 1. Everyone knows Lambda. So I'm going to go 5. S3.
Yes.
SQS. Huh? Aurora serverless. That's Aurora serverless.
Another one,
DB. Okay, Amplify hosting is somewhat serverless. Yeah. But everyone, I know everyone. I didn't say don't use Lambda, but okay, Lambda, right? So there is serverless application modeling from AWS. It's a beautiful framework. integrates beautifully for organizations that are 100% AWS. But what about for organizations that are not 100% AWS? Right? So the open source community came out with the serverless framework. Right? Now the serverless framework is a bunch of libraries that developers can use to, now push your applications into serverless platforms on Google or Azure. In this case, today we'll focus on AWS, right? Surrounded by Google, but we'll focus on AWS. Right? So that's what the serverless framework is from the open source community, right? So anyone looking to build products, for example, SaaS applications for startups, right? They love using the serverless framework. Why? Because you have now, there's no vendor tie-in, right? One of the challenges, right, to serverless is the vendor tie-in, right? So now that you're on AWS Lambda, you're kind of stuck on AWS Lambda until you figure out the exit strategy and all of that, right? So serverless framework kind of solved that because it's open source. You can kind of actually just shift providers by just changing one YAML file in your code, right? So now I developed a small application over the past 2 weeks to showcase all of this in action, right? But before I show you guys the application, right? One thing that's been booming, and I think a lot of organizations, even startups, will be using is DevOps, CI/CD, actually DevSecOps, right? Security is an integral role in our day-to-day, right? So AWS gives you these beautiful developer tools, right? Code commit, code deploy, code build, code guru, and tie together with code pipeline, right? So I basically leverage that to go ahead and deploy some sort of website or web application that's working on it. A lot of things, right? So if everyone could just scan that QR code if possible, while I open up the app. Why is it?
No, because I don't know what this is.
Okay, amarkj.com. Okay. MARC. Yeah. Better? All right, cool. So this is a small web app that I built for the past 2 weeks. I know it's nice code and all, but yeah. Pretty cool, right? But what I want you guys to focus on is this section here. This is the architecture for the website, right? So this is how the website works, right? So one of the biggest things that any organization or a product team or maybe a business team or even a technical team does within an organization is choose your language. Like choosing the development language because like if I was talking, he's a Java person.
Because Java or Python, majority
Java, right? There's a reason you chose Java. Right? So choosing the language is very important in building web applications, building front end, building back end, right? Because each language was purpose-built for a specific functionality, if you think about it, right? You go backwards, right? You look at Bible C, but C was built for a purpose. Because people couldn't do this, they took C to do it. And then everyone started adopting C. And then Java came around, C++ came around. And then all the TypeScript languages came around, and the JavaScript languages came around, right? And then people started building frameworks on top of it, right? So I'm one of those lazy guys who chose to use the framework on top of the app. So I chose Next.js, right? Next.js has been gaining popularity in the past few years, only because of its capabilities to do server-side rendering as well as static-side generation at the same time, right? So what's the difference? Server-side rendering is basically where your traditional websites, right? I'm talking about server. Actually, when you used to run the servers to run your websites and run your web apps, you would PHP, for example, or WordPress, right? You would access the website. What happens in the backend? The web app renders HTML pages and serves it to your browser for your browser to read, right? And then, serverless languages or client-side applications came along where you would just serve JavaScript to your browser, and the browser would execute JavaScript, and you have a beautiful web page happen and all of that, right? But think about the business considerations, right? So moving away from your personal life back into the business world, right? What's important for a business, right? Search engine optimization, right? When you serve JavaScript to a search engine crawler, you're basically going down the line because the SEO crawlers are actually looking for HTML because HTML contains the text that you need and in a structured format. Yes.
You are not presenting that screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, this is like on YouTube too.
Oh, this is live.
Famous. All right, yeah. So, can you see it?
I wait 10 seconds.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so this going like I was talking about search engine optimization, right? Really important for a business. Why? Because when you search these keywords, my hope is when you search for my middle name, this website pops up now, right? Because MARC, right? So I'm hoping that it's pretty. I know it's a common name, but because of the C at the end, it kind of becomes unique. So I'm hoping that the search engine, web crawlers are happy with me, right? Now let's talk about architecture here, right? So why this app is pretty cool is because of its capability to do both static site generation as well as server-side rendering at the same time. So it's a responsive site. So if you guys open it on your mobile, right, you'll be seeing the mobile version of it. I'm opening it on my laptop, so you're seeing the laptop version of it, right? Now what's happening in the back end, right? So I'm using Next.js's capabilities to do server-side rendering, but I've gone ahead and put that on the serverless platform. I've gone ahead and put that on Lambda. How did I do that? I use the serverless plugin available from the open source community, right? So it's one serverless.yaml file, you structure it, you put it in your application, and it understands how to build it out as a serverless application, post it on Lambda, and run your application. So that's what's happening. So every time someone goes ahead and maybe say clicks on one of the links, right? Or maybe click on the about section on the header, click on the contact me section of the header, right? It automatically generates that piece of JavaScript and serves it back to your browser for it to execute. But at the same time, it stores the HTML files in the static site bucket here. So any search engine crawler can come and request a static site. If it's requesting HTML files, it's already present to be served, right? So it's very efficient that way. Now I'm starting it with CloudFront. Why am I starting it with CloudFront? Because ACM certificates are free. I don't have to pay prices over here, right? SSL certificates are expensive to actually look at it, right? So like this ACM certificate is free, so I can use CloudFront. I have my domain hosted on Cloud53, so all my networking happens right there. In the back end, I'm also working on a few applications that are going to leverage microservices that I get on serverless. More for personal needs, charge a calculator, stuff like that. But everything's going to happen through the same front end, right? So if you guys want to come back to the site, you might see you can request for a user. I can always give you a user to the application. I'm using Cognito in that application, so it's easy to create a user. But yeah, and if you look at the bottom part, you see the CI/CD pipeline. Pretty simple CI/CD, just 3 steps. Version control, build, deploy, post into my application, right? So right now, I can take a photo of you guys, make a nice section, AWS user groups, and without information, obviously. But yeah, put it on the website. Just slam picture of everyone there on the web, on this web page, and 15 minutes later, because it's CI/CD, right? So what is CI/CD terminal, right? So continuous integration. Who knows the other 2 CDs? And exactly. Everyone forgets it. Everyone forgets the delivery part, right? So yeah. So delivery is actually where you're posting your artifacts, right? So you don't have difference in artifact files that's going into your deployment stage. So that's what CD is actually. The deployment part is not important. So the whole part of CD came out after CI was introduced, right? After this continuous integration was introduced into the world, right? You had we solved one problem. People didn't have different code streams that they're working. Right? Everyone's working on a master branch. Your product branch, and then your master branch didn't have that big of values, and stuff. So CI worked beautifully. And then everyone is like, oh, okay, now we have a problem with our artifact. It's not what we need. So we need CD, and that's how CD was formed, right? And that's just, I would say, plus the end state for CI. CD is just the end state for CI. So that's how I'm currently leveraging stuff that I'm trying to learn in my personal life, and also trying to mimic how I work, what I do as a profession, right? So this is something similar I proposed to a customer not a long time back. Obviously, there is a little more secure than this, but yeah, this real life business, it kind of your melds into each other, right? It's like you have chocolate ice cream, you have vanilla ice cream. After some time, you have some goo in there, right? But yeah, so this is how I believe, personal life, you can leverage technology in personal life, bring it in. It's an awesome way to learn, right? Like 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't think I could develop, but here we go. So, anyways, that's what I have to present for today. Any questions?
Yes. How do you get that cert?
You attend AWS quizzes.
It's just that he has the cert.
He was also at the quiz.
He has the AWS cert as well.
Yeah, he was in the same quiz.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think there's like 3 modes in Next.js that you can deploy to AWS. One of them, like, you can regenerate the whole website. The other one is you can on deployment.
Yeah.
So what are you going with here?
In this solution, I'm doing both. So I'm doing regeneration of my artifacts, but there are some parts of my application that are being generated on demand. The responsive parts of it. Yes.
Experience slow startup side.
No, so okay, I forgot to mention, this is hosted on Lambda at Edge, right? So I'm kind of moving the cold start problem. So the difference between Lambda and Lambda at Edge is that Lambda at Edge has a little more quicker response when it comes compared to your normal Lambda hosted, right? So the slow start, the cold start issue is kind of reduced. This is also not that big of an application. It doesn't have that long an execution time. So the code package is in KB and not in not a 200 KB package, right? So there isn't much to execute. So because if you look at, I think last time in Petronas, during the Petronas meet, I think the speaker did show, during the cold start in different phases, right? The biggest chunk of that was downloading your package, right? So because I've reduced the package download time, the cold start really doesn't affect the website. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm interested to know the cost deploying Next.js on AWS environment compared to version. Like how much?
Right now I'm playing 0.
Or none.
Okay, so under free here, this wouldn't cost you much at all. Even so, if you say about 5,000 requests a month, right? I'm not that famous also, it's a personal website. So I say 5,000 requests a month. I don't think I'd be paying more than a couple of dollars to host this entire thing. So yeah. So the difference between owning the platform and Vercel is that Vercel gives you the whole thing, right? So they give you the CI, they give you the CD, they give you everything, and you just put your code there and you post it, right? So there's always a platform fee to that, right? So all the startups love platform fees. Okay, yes, you have a question.
Yeah. So suppose I have a lot of lambdas, around 40 to 50 lambdas, and my developers want to deploy that code. So I want to build the CI/CD using code build and code deploy, and let's go for code company. So how do you design for these huge number of lambdas?
Are they all the same application?
Yep, same application, and the whole backend is built in lambdas.
Okay, so that's why. So I wouldn't answer questions straight off the bat. I would need to understand can the lambdas be split and all of that, right? But to give you an answer, right, like I mentioned at the beginning, right, there are design aspects that you need to take into consideration when you think about all of this, right? So if I had 50 lambda functions, that's basically only 50 features of my application, right? I wouldn't have all 50 features in the same branch. I mean, the same pipeline. I would have maybe a few pipelines just to run different feature as individual microservices. So I'd have a microservice based approach to that, right? Because Why would you have one pipeline for an entire application that has 15 services? So if you look at, if you go back into your design considerations and you go into the MARC framework, your microservice, API, first cloud, headless system, you would basically have multiple pipelines with multiple microservices, and that would make it easier for your DevOps teams to manage it. Because the whole thing about MARC is even if one service fails, it doesn't affect multiple services. There's no overflow when it comes to failure. Any other questions? Yes.
When to choose serverless and when to choose containers?
That's a good question. Okay. If you're running long running queries, right? If your application has to stay up, you have parallelism to the application and everyone's using it 24/7, you would not choose serverless. You would choose containers.
Why?
Because one, it would be cheaper. Yes, please.
You can run containers serverlessly, and you also can run containers serverless.
Okay. Okay, I see where you're coming from. All right. Okay, so the bring kids clarification to that, right? So AWS offers you Fargate as a service. Fargate is serverless containers. All right. It's a little confusing. I know it confuses me too. But yeah, I think to remove the AWS part of it, right? Just containers on EC2 versus Lambda. That the 2 points I gave you applies, right? But then, yeah, if you're going to run, now the choice is between containers on EC2 versus Fargate. Then Fargate offers you serverless containerization, right? So basically, you're not running, it becomes a platform as a service, right? It's serverless from AWS perspective, as in AWS hosts the servers for you, just like Lambda, right? AWS hosts the servers for you, AWS hosts the management plane for you, AWS hosts the Docker or the container engine for you, and you just run your containers on top of it, right? So if you look at Lambda, so Lambda is like a container platform, right? Basically, you're putting code in a small package and you're running it, it executes, right? You think of it as a container too, right? But over here, AWS makes sure to keep the container alive, right, as a task, right? So you can have tasks that are not on event-driven, right? So Lambda is meant for event-driven applications. That's another, I'll add another point to that, right? Lambda was built for event-driven applications, and you will use container for non-event-driven, more continuous applications.
May I just add one thing to the last one you mentioned? So when you split between event-based and then real-time, let's say, event-based, I just want to add one thing here. If you are expecting a lot of traffic coming to your serverless API, you can say API gateway and Lambda. If you are expecting a lot of traffic or you are expecting a lot of attacks, then don't use serverless. Because what you will be facing is that there is a limit on the number of the function concurrent on the function that you can have at the same time. And what will happen is that you max out the number of the functions that you have because of the big traffic or because of the attack that you are receiving at that moment, and then the legitimate traffic will not be going through. So that's one of the decisions that we made is to not expose any of the endpoint or any of the APIs for real-time traffic to the customers, and we move to Fargate. But for everything event-based, yeah, one number.
I hope that answered your question.
How about WAF?
The WAF, okay, yes. So WAF is pretty strong at blocking out a lot of web attacks, right? But WAF also, so there's this concept of bot traffic, right? So your security is as strong as the person who's actually managing the platform. In WAF, you have AWS managed rules, and AWS managed rules are built on OWASP, right? It's the OWASP top 10 the rules. Now, there is always new attacks coming in, right? So AWS is always on top of the game. So even today, I was on an AWS security thing, right? They're always on the top of the game, they're getting out new stuff, right? But they don't guarantee that you're never going to be attacked, right? DDoS happens. AWS gets attacked, right? AWS is proud about getting attacked. Like, hey, we saw the 2 TV DDoS attack, right? The thing is, that's where the shared security model comes into play, right? So it's a very important concept in AWS. AWS is responsible for different type of services for only a specific type of level of security. When it comes to running Lambda, because you have an API gateway interface, it's your job to secure your transit traffic and stuff. So it's your job to keep startup app additional money. Depends again, like Fabian said it before, right? It's about trade-offs. I'm not very much concerned about them getting personal information. It's available on LinkedIn profile. But enterprise customers, they have a lot of sensitive information, right? So for them, their trade-off is, okay, I can't be attacked, so I'm willing to pay the cost, right? And that's when you start leveraging AWS services, security services, third-party security services, and you build various, it's called defense in depth. So you build various layers of security throughout your enterprise architecture, throughout your architecture.
Let's say you have a use case where a data scientist would want to design a dashboard. Okay, it's accessible to the team or even the system. It would only be
Why wouldn't you just use QuickSight? It's a web application dashboard service, dashboarding or BI, actually a BI service from AWS, right? So there are already so many. I mean, unless you're a product company, right? If you're trying to build a product, you can use Fargate for certain functions. You can even use Lambda. You can use a combination of both Fargate and Lambda. You can use serverless to host your website, right? To host your front end. So you can use a combination of Fargate, you can use a combination of Lambda. It really depends on your backend, because when you talk about data visualization, it's where are you running your query, right? So AWS has a lot of new services. Look at Redshift serverless, that's just come out, right? So that's one of the, I mean, there are more than 5 now. So anyway, Redshift serverless is a pretty cool place to run all of this, right? Run your BI queries, run your analytics queries and stuff. But to answer your question in the indirect way, QuickSight would be an answer to that. If you have a team looking to build dashboards.
So why would the enterprise streaming video?
So you can always stream video in Kinesis. Kinesis, yeah. So you can stream video into Kinesis. So Kinesis would be part of your ingestion pipeline. You would use Kinesis as a integration point for your ingestion pipeline. Maro can correct me if I'm wrong on the data analytics part of it, but yeah, you would stream your video content. I'm assuming you're getting metadata out of that video, right? Pardon?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so once you process your video through your ingestion pipeline, and you store your metadata in S3 or DynamoDB, you can then use that to be queried in your application. Anyone else? No? All right, sorry.
Hey, thanks.
Did they ask a question?
Yes. Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming. We always say that, right? We're always opening for any talk. So I know you are going to be next month. We're waiting for it, right? So if you guys want to give any talk, again, it's not supposed to be like super senior talk. If you want to help with the public speaking or with your slides, we can help you as well with that. And Koshik actually just about the, what do you call it? Lightning talks. So we will be starting like doing like 5 minutes talks. Okay, so if you want to just practice public speaking, share what you are doing, of course on the cloud. So we will be, maybe next month.
Next month we'll be starting at least 10 to 15 minutes. So that you can just come share what you're doing. It could be an impromptu, spontaneous one or else prepare. No need of slides. You can just sharing what you're doing and sharing with the community.
Yeah, see, we have first one on track. Awesome. Yeah. Want to share anything? Salam, Koshik.
Thank you everyone for today. Today again, we already have a good record audience again, 80 plus almost.
Always getting good
great. So please do share with your team, with your community to come join in and share as well.
And one thing, guys, whoever say they are hiring, please do post it on our Facebook group. Like, let's do the community, we help each other. Just post it there, and people will easier to reach out to you there. And we will keep it there so people can as well. Within 10 today, they can know about this opportunities, and we will make our group bigger. So thank you all, and we'll see you next month. We don't know yet where we will be doing it. We will let you know.
And before we do that, maybe we can have both the speakers here and we just take a group photo. We join them as well. Salam. Jan. Come on. Come here. Marwa.
Yeah, nice picture of that.
All right, guys. AWS. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.